Welcome, everyone! And finally, we can talk about our spoiler review for Queen's Hope. So, if you have not already read it, make sure to go read it and then come back and listen to us three talk about our review for the book. It is amazing and it is definitely worth your time. And you guys are for sure going to want to go pick yourself up a copy. So, without further ado, let's get on with the video. As you guys can see, me and Harith are joined by our good friend Luke from the Podswamp podcast. Luke, how's it going?
Good. Finally, we get to talk some spoilers with you guys.
I know, and like
y'all were slacking.
we were not slacking.
I had an entire trilogy to read.
I will admit this. I wasn't about to read the other two books before Camilla said something or Boriko. Just gonna call myself out for that. But I'm glad I read those two books because those, they're so good and they're not that long. They're 240 pages maybe.
They're like a 2-day read.
Yeah,
I
think the page count for Hope is 280. If you have an audiobook, it's like a 5-hour audiobook.
5-hour book?
6-hour book.
Not
If you speed it up,
6-hour book?
if you speed it up, it's like 3 hours.
Yeah, so
wow.
they're definitely worth a read. And you definitely want to read the first two before you get into Queen's Hope. So right now, spoilers. I know we kept saying spoilers, but spoiler review. Especially whenever we're talking about the handmaidens, there is a ton of stuff that gets covered in especially Queen's Peril. I think we got a lot of stuff in Queen's Shadow, but there is a ton of stuff that directly relates to certain people's relationships from Peril to Shadow.
Yes.
If you guys know what I mean. I'm forgetting the senator's name. Harley. Everything
Harley,
with Harley and Sabe. That's some key stuff that you're definitely going to want to read before you get into Queen's Hope.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, and to be honest, these books enhance the two movies that they go hand in hand with.
A
ton. Yeah, Phantom Menace. It's just I know what I have some background context to these. I know that. I know this. This.
And Phantom Menace make sense after reading.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say
absolutely.
Let me grab the two books. I was saying Master and Apprentice and Queen's Peril really do a good job of making you understand Phantom Menace. If you want to understand Phantom Menace, read those two books.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's why I actually might watch Phantom Menace tonight. I'm kind of debating it just for prep for the trivia tournament, but I'm excited to watch that book now that I know all the stuff that I know prior to or after reading Queen's Peril and Master and Apprentice. But I think we should now start getting into Queen's Hope. So whenever the book starts, Padme is making her dress from the wedding for her wedding with Anakin. We also learn that Yane helps to incorporate pieces of Padme's family thread kind of into the dress, which I thought was super cool, and it added a whole just another layer to that scene. We also learn that Sabe is back on Tatooine, which in Queen's Shadow we see Sabe is trying to free slaves in Tatooine. Whenever she's there, the first time she only frees, I think, 28 slaves. I could be wrong. It's around that many, only a handful, and she's not satisfied at all. So Sabe is back on Tatooine trying to free as many slaves as she can with Arton, or what? That's his uncommon type. On Tundra. Yeah. So Sabe and Tundra are there. We learn that Dorme is trying to find handmaidens after the death of Corday. And we learn that a lot about the state of Naboo politics through Sasha, who is the handmaiden that is in politics. We learn that Naboo, with the Clone Wars rising, Naboo's in turmoil. The debate is whether or not Naboo should call on the entire sector for aid when the war comes. This is to try and help stop what happened to Naboo during the Trade Federation lockdown. So they're trying to stop a repeat of what happened during the Phantom Menace. Sashay is in favor of aid since she was like basically tortured during those events and learned from a firsthand experience that like this is not good and we cannot have a repeat of that. So that's kind of how the book starts, and that's kind of how the book shifts throughout. So we'll get a chapter with Padme, we'll get a chapter with Sabe, we'll get a chapter with Sashay, and then we'll kind of all bring them together eventually.
And I would say for the first two books, I felt like they felt very independent of each other. Like, okay, you could read Queen's Shadow or you could read Queen's Peril, and they don't really interact that much. Mm-hmm. Hope felt like it tied the three books together, and they'll call back stuff from all three. Like the scene with Sabe and Depa Billaba, they reference the stuff of how Padme and Depa Billaba were on a mission together with Rush Clovis. Like, stuff like that. Or like you said earlier, when Sashay references how she got tortured by the Nemoidians during the invasion on Naboo. Like, the Queen's Hope does a really good job of just, like, tying all these books together and making them make sense and make it feel like a trilogy of books.
I think the biggest part of this book is not only the epilogue, but, like, the in-between.
Yes.
Like, context we get. Like, Beru, she's the one that's helping the slaves get off of Tatooine. Like, that's incredible. That, like, makes Aunt Beru that much more of a badass. You know what I mean?
But, like, I don't know, like, E.K., I was joking about this with a friend on Discord. I was saying, E.K. Johnson was on a mission with this book. Her mission was like, all right, we're going to tear the heart out of every Star Wars fan with this book. Like, the section with, like, Shmi Skywalker. Or Beru. Like
Shmi Skywalker made me cry, like not even like 5 seconds in.
Or Brita Organa, like those sections, you're just like, why are you tearing my heart out, EK? What did I do to deserve this?
And also, I think she kind of consulted Claudia for the Breha stuff. To be honest.
This book, you maybe really want to read Leia, Princess of Alderaan.
I do. I really want to read Leia, Princess of Alderaan now.
Such a good book. I love that book.
Yeah. And then we get to see a lot more of Anakin Skywalker, which is crazy. And one of the first main chapters we see of Anakin is him meditating at Qui-Gon's grave before the wedding.
That's rough. That was also another tearjerker for me because it's like the boy is just like, all right, I'm about to make a life-changing decision here. Like, I gotta be Zen. I gotta have Master Qui-Gon with me. And the fact that they referenced that he could hear Qui-Gon when he was killing the Tusken Raiders.
That was one of the things I wanted to point out was that he could hear. That is like, that's not just something that, we as fans kind of notice. No, that is something that Anakin heard when he was killing the Tuskens. That's incredible. I absolutely love that.
Which adds context to Clone Wars because when he sees Qui-Gon on Mortis or when Yoda asks about why is he hearing Qui-Gon's voice, you get that added context on top of it.
Yeah. It's just like Anakin's part in this book is just like so nice. Like it wasn't Anakin Skywalker, as everybody knows, he's my favorite character. So it's like seeing him in this book was really nice, and we got to see like the early stages of the Clone Wars, which is so interesting because we didn't get to see that in the actual Clone Wars TV show itself. It didn't pick up right from after the end of Attack of the Clones. It was 6 months after Attack of the Clones. So it's just nice to see where their relationship is, and then the relationship between him, Sabe, like those three, very intriguing.
Yeah,
very intriguing.
That one scene when Anakin knows that Sabe is not Padme, and he barges into the room, and I remember finishing that chapter and going. Like before we knew it was Anakin, I was like, someone's gonna try to assassinate Sabe.
That was that. Yeah. And then, well, I kind of knew that it was Anakin. Though.
Yeah, I was like, this is Anakin 100%.
Like I knew it was Anakin because it was like, and a figure is watching close by, or like I can't remember exactly what the excerpt says.
It's like a dark.
And I'm like, bro, it's Anakin. Like nobody else is gonna gain access. Like, come on, it's Anakin.
But like, I love Anakin and Sabe's interaction because like how
Yes.
uncomfortable Sabe
Mhm.
is and how like Anakin's
Well-
like pressing on. It's the funniest thing.
Well, and the
Yes.
fact and the fact that Sabe is able to pick up on like the red flags, as we might say, the red flags. Like, she's like, "Ooh, I don't know about this. I understand why she likes you, but I don't like that about you. You
Yep.
kind of, you seem kind of off, some points." And like, I found that so interesting, so
Mhm.
interesting.
Because that kind of adds to my point that I wanted to say in the spoiler review, but I kind of held myself from saying it because I don't want to go too much into spoilers in that review.
Oh, okay.
3, 2, 1. I would say that makes me like realize that like with I was gonna say my non-spoiler review, but like you just said about Sabe, Anakin, and Padme is Clone Wars made me like their relationship of like how it worked. This book made me understand why
Mhm.
Anakin and Padme hooked up. Because like yes, it's explained in Attack of the Clones, but not really. It's just more like, oh, I'm a senator, you're a Jedi, we can't hook up. But it's not like it doesn't really go into the details of why they hooked up. This book explains why Padme has a connection for Anakin and why Anakin has a connection for Padme is because they're living these double lives and they relate to each other because they have all these secrets that they have to contain to themselves, but they can't tell anybody. And that connection, that bond is what connects them together. So like moving a little bit forward to, I would say arguably my favorite scene of this book is Sabe in the Senate building talking to Barriss Offee, Anakin, and Palpatine. That scene, oh my god. Like, her conversation with Barriss foreshadows so much of why Barriss ends up the way she does in Clone Wars Season 5 of betraying the Jedi Order, of like, I have to go back to these younglings and Padawans and see them scarred and damaged of war. And like, it makes sense of why Barriss is like, no, we're wrong for this. We shouldn't be in here. We're supposed to be peacekeepers. You're all lying to yourselves. Like, seeing
When Barriss says, like, she doesn't really want to fight in the war. Barriss would rather be behind lines healing people than on the front lines killing droids and everything. So we definitely get to see a lot more of Barriss. We get to see this conversation between Sabe and Plo Koon, which I thought was really interesting. Mm-hmm.
And then we get the conversation which ties back to Queen Shadow with Depa Billaba and Sabe, where Depa Billaba references that Padme was on a mission with Rush Clovis and how they know each other, and Sabe had to act like she knew what was going on, but in reality she didn't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was really hoping for a Caleb Doom appearance, but unfortunately we did not get it.
It was too early in the timeline.
Yeah. And something I think that's interesting to note is that whenever Sabe and Palpatine were talking, Sabe says that she feels the same type of energy that the Jedi give off, but Palpatine feels really dark. And I just think that's super interesting that Sabe, like, obviously doesn't know anything really about the Jedi or the Sith, but she can sense that Palpatine just kind of feels dark. And then after this conversation, we get a Palpatine POV paragraph where Palpatine looks at a dried up fountain in the temple, and he just says that this fountain will never be wet again. So it's kind of just saying that Palpatine is already kind of laying the eggs and already tampering with the Jedi right under their noses.
Yeah, and I feel like
absolutely.
Like, that's just incredible that he is like literally just making a little jab here, while the Jedi are 20 feet away from him.
Yeah. And to add on that, I feel like we missed probably the big part of that entire sequence is Sabe's last conversation with Anakin, when they're just alone in the corner, and it's Sabe's putting the pieces together that it's not just a like on and off relationship, it's a marriage. That's the moment when Sabe it clicks on Sabe's. I'm like, oh my god, Padme married you. And Anakin tries to, like, he gets so uncomfortable, he just walks away. And Obi-Wan's like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Like, that whole, like, again, I was on the edge of my seat reading that whole sequence. And then, like, again, like, going to Palpatine and Palpatine taking your arm and figuring out, oh, this is Sabe. Like, it just shows
insane
how much of a stranglehold, like, Palpatine has on the Jedi Order. And I honestly have this opinion that, like, I think E.K. Johnson, in my opinion, writes Palpatine in such an interesting way in Shadow and Peril and Hope that like I'm like, because like she does like this cool duality thing of like, oh, here's Chancellor Palpatine, here's Sidious, and like the way like it will subtly shift back and forth. I love the way E.K. Johnson writes Palpatine. Like more Palpatine content from EK.
And then after Sabe learns about the marriage, Sabe's like, "What the heck, Padme? Why wouldn't you tell me that you're married?" And then it creates this little turmoil that needs to be solved, and they really haven't had this kind of discrepancy, I guess, between the two yet. And after this kind of happens, and after Sabe kind of talks with Padme, she realizes that she's not right for Padme anymore. She needs to get away from being a handmaiden, which is powerful. It sucks. It's tough. It hurts my heart, man. But it's like
it's incredible. It's incredible how well it's written. Like it's just ridiculously like at the end, like you're thinking, oh, okay, so like are we like what? So like at the end, it's like, oh, they sleep together, but it's not like they sleep together. It's like it's just basically like a sleepover.
Yeah,
and it's like Sabe. We know Sabe wants more. At one point, Padme wanted that as well. If you read it, because you can definitely see that in Queen's Peril for sure. Like that relationship is so strong that is ridiculous. Like they had feelings for each other, and I absolutely I enjoy that about Padme's character so much, and I feel like it wasn't hit on a ton, or it's just like a new concept for Padme now.
Yeah, and kind of building off that on a completely different note, the representation that EK wrote into this book was amazing. We had a transgender clone trooper, which is amazing. Like it just makes sense. Like that is it's just awesome that like whenever Padme's like brother or whatever, and she's like, they call me sister, and you're like, oh my gosh, like yes, this needed to happen.
I want to see Sister in Bad Batch season 2. I feel like it would fit perfectly.
I honestly think she's gonna show up in Brotherhood. She'll probably die in Brotherhood. Unfortunately.
I'm hoping. I
don't know.
Maybe. Who knows? But because I don't feel like she would want to be a part of the Empire. But then again, like, who knows? And also,
you don't never know what that.
Also, this gives credence to Omega being transgender.
Mm-hmm. That's why
I love that.
I want to.
I love that.
That's why
more representation.
That's why I want it. I want to see Sister and Omega interact.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
And the use of neopronouns with Zur, which was pretty cool. It's another cool thing. So like EK, like hats off to you, just kind of just going all in and getting these representations into Star Wars, which it just makes sense that it's there, right? It just makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have a whole freaking galaxy of different species and in different like I don't understand why we can't see representation of all people of color, of
minorities,
sex, or minorities. Like there's every single person who watches Star Wars, whether it be from America, England, China, just like all over the world, should have a character that they can resonate with. And I feel like now more than ever that is starting to happen, and I'm really, really happy, and I really, really enjoy that that process is finally happening.
And I think we've kind of got a lot of the book. Obviously, there are some like big kind of key plot points that we didn't quite cover, but in general, I think we covered most of the book. So I want to kind of know your guys' thoughts on that final scene. We got the epilogue, and just kind of your overall closing thoughts on Queen's Hope.
Luke, you can go first because you're the guest here.
Do I plug my stuff here then?
No.
You don't have to.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway,
wait, let's restart.
Yeah, restart. Sorry. Yeah, okay. I didn't know. I should have asked. Sorry.
Okay. 3, 2. So I think we basically covered the whole book. Obviously, there were some big like plot points that we didn't quite get to, but if you want to, I mean, you're gonna have to read the book if you want all of the big plot story beats. But here we just kind of talked about obviously our overall thoughts on the book, and let's kind of close out the conversation. Let's talk about the epilogue and like the final scene of the book. So Luke, since you're technically our guest here today, what were your thoughts on the epilogue?
I loved it. Each section of the book, you get this daughter.
Yes.
You get Leia at the beginning, then you get Padme in the middle, and then you get Breha at the bottom, at the end. And it was such a tearjerker. Like, it was just so devastating. And like I said earlier, it does a great job for Princess Leia of Alderaan, because it's like you get to experience what Breha goes through in that. Well, before that book, she has to go through the trial. She ends up hurting herself, which affects how they can have children, which ultimately leads to them adopting Leia. So, and I love that, because we always talk about how Bail and Padme were so close, but like now, like they can give Leia like the stories, like the hollows, because after the Clone Wars, Padme Amidala is pretty much stricken from the record. She's like erased from history. So the only ones that really know are the people that were friends with her, and there's not very much public record except for the painting, except for what's on Naboo. So I feel like that was just a great way to end the book, is to have Breha be the final stamp.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I want to see more Breha. I definitely want to read Leia, Princess of Alderaan after reading this book. It definitely gets me excited for that. And really, whenever like Alderaan gets destroyed in A New Hope, it's like, damn. Like, it just adds another layer, which is what this trilogy of books does so well. It just adds a whole nother layer onto the prequels, onto A New Hope, onto Padme and Leia's character, that I just think was done so extremely well.
Yeah, I would say E.K. Johnson does it again. She's really good at like filling in details and gaps of like,
yes,
what is this for? Like, why does this happen this way? Like, she's really good at like filling in those little details and gaps, and this like again, Shadow, Peril, and Hope do a really good job of explaining why Padme is the way she is in the prequel trilogy, and like Ahsoka does a really good job of explaining why she is the way she is in Rebel. E.K. Johnson does again, amazing author.
Yeah, a lot of credit to EK there. Again, I think EK's writing is just best whenever it's just filling in those gaps and get like you said, getting a character from where we see in one movie to where we see him in another. On behalf of the entire panel here, we want to thank Disney Publishing for giving us the opportunity to get to read Queen's Hope early. It was quite the ride, and I know we all had an amazing time. So Luke, thank you so much for joining us, and may the Force be with you.
Always.